1 minute late. Ron, jeez. Uh, it's conference championship weekend. Ron's here. I'm here. Ted is, I don't know where Ted is. Do you know where Ted is?
He should be joining us momentarily. I thought I was doubtful today because the tennis made me a little stiff and sore. So I'm listed as doubtful. I may not play on Sunday, so we'll see.
Well, Jesus, I don't know how you do it, buddy. For anybody watching, I've been on the tennis court with this geezer, and he ran me ragged. So anyway,
we're going back on. We're going to go back on in August. We'll see.
That was embarrassing. I don't know what to say. I actually had to put down my cigar for that. Anyway, we did Tuesday already. That was a good conversation. Anything that you can recall that you left on the table?
Well, no, I think it was a good conversation because we got into some of the hedging information and some of the other interesting side notes as far as how they got here. And I think we just have to build on that now. We have some injury data that obviously we have to deal with because, there's some key players that may or may not play in these two games.
And specifically, who are you worried about?
Obviously, Deebo Samuel is the most important one in the San Francisco game. And in the other game, I would say we're looking at Andrews.
He's playing,
but I'd like to know exactly what his usage is. If I could get a hold of the game plan, that would be good.
Well, I was listening to a pod where they mentioned that all the video of him showed him like on practice fields and going into huddles and that sort of thing, but they never showed him playing, which was a bad sign. So I'll bet you he's sort of in the Deebo category where, they're going to put him out there, but how effective he is, we don't know. Probably not much.
No, and I really think, in looking back, and I think San Francisco acknowledged it as well, that Deebo was an amazing part of last week's game plan. And they kind of stumbled around until they figured out that, no, he's not playing. We're going to have to do something else. So hopefully they have, for their sake, some contingency plans in this particular game. And, we can touch upon the fact that how a team looks last week doesn't mean they're going to look the same the next week. I think I mentioned that with the Detroit Lions. There he is.
Did I take a hint, guys?
I mentioned that with the Detroit Lions, how they were passive in their first playoff game and then got aggressive in their second.
Welcome to the show, Theodore. We were
thank you.
We were airing your personal dirty laundry for everybody so that they would know all your all the things you don't want people to know about you. But
which is a long list.
So catch us up to speed. What do you got on? What do you got on the plate today?
Well, I want to start out by talking coaches because that's obviously high on everybody's list with the Harbaugh situation. We want to get your thoughts first, Cris, on the end of the Michigan era there and how that affects your family's lives for the rest of eternity.
And I was just so sick and tired of every year is Harbaugh coming or going. I think that's going to be a relief, and I really haven't given it any thought. It's just great to have that championship and actually just have Harbaugh out of there. You just don't want somebody like that that's got one foot out the door every year.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be totally annoying. I'm wondering what Ron's thoughts are from a legal standpoint, as far as all the NCAA stuff and how that's going to affect them moving forward. And I guess bring in the assistant who did well when Harbaugh was suspended, and whatever happens.
Yeah, I could tell you how this plays out after 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
So Cris better cover his ears, and it's a win-win right now. Because They will lessen the penalties with Harbaugh not there, saying that it was under his watch and it's unfair to penalize the student athletes if you can call them that anymore at this point. And Harbaugh, when he goes to the NFL, the only stipulation will be, and we've seen this before, by the way, whereas if he ever goes back to college, there may be a probation, or he may not be allowed to go back and coach a college team for 2 years or 3 years or something like that. That's the short-term thing. So it's going to be a win for Michigan and a win for Harbaugh. The long-term thing is this assistant is probably going to do like 2/3 of assistants do. He'll have the rah-rah. He'll lose some of the portal, transfer things over a year or two. The league gets tougher with USC in it and Oregon in it. I don't think it gets tougher over the long haul with Washington, by the way. So what we're going to be looking at is Michigan 2025, 7-5. Next year, maybe 10. Next year, still good, really good, possibly top 12 in the playoffs. 2025, 7-5.
Okay. Now I think the biggest question about numbers, how much is Jim Harbaugh going to make with the Chargers? I guess he was offered about 12 a year with Michigan. And so you got to figure it's going to be somewhere around 15-ish a year, depending on if the Chargers can rob a bank somewhere and spend money for the first time ever for a coach. This is only the second head coach in the last, I believe it's more than 30 years that the Chargers have hired who has actually been a head coach. Think about that.
Ted, you have to eat some of your words. You said they'd never pay for Harbaugh.
I said until they show it that they would.
Yeah.
And, I didn't expect them to do it, and now they did it. I always said all along, spend the money and prove that you belong in Los Angeles. Because guess what? This was the smartest move they ever could have made, even if they win 4 games next year. This is going to give them credibility that they did not have before in this market. They're the second team. They probably always will be, but now they're 1A-ish. And there's going to be more focus on the team immediately.
Yeah.
I was hoping that they would get Matt Patricia, and that would really help out the cause.
Well, we have a shortage of pencils in this town, so I'm not so sure he would have ever fit. But
he was dropped from number 2 to number 3 pencil.
Let's hear from Jim's little brother, John, about his thoughts of his brother getting a job in L.A. with the Chargers. Number 1, please.
My thoughts are we play him next year. So we're looking forward to all of it. I'm just very happy for him, proud of him, excited for him, excited for his family. I heard my mom and dad told me that he called back in the evening and he found out that all of his kids, starting with Addie and Katie, had their bags packed already. They're ready to go. So they're excited too. So it's going to be great. He's well-deserved, and I'll say this: the Chargers just got themselves one great coach. My thought.
Okay, so now he's an L.A. Charger. So let's look at what's happened in the last couple of days. Raheem Morris goes to Atlanta. Everybody's got something positive to say about him. I didn't deal with him much with the Rams because I wasn't around since he's been here like I was before. But for them to just say, you know what, we're not interested in Bill Belichick. We're going in a totally different direction. And it's interesting, too. They didn't just go after an OC. They went after a DC. So I think that's a fascinating statement about, you know what, maybe Bill Belichick is not the answer to anything anymore.
It was actually kind of refreshing that nobody has hired him, because it just feels like he's sticking around. For the record, I just don't know where he's really going to fit in, and why a team really would want to go that direction at that age, knowing that, his personality and his inability to relate to many people, and his disconnect offensively, and just the age, and just being a cantankerous bastard.
Yeah. We'll see what happens next year. I know he's a year older next year, but there'll be jobs opening up. There's jobs opening up all the time. This is a win now kind of business. It's an interesting decision that Atlanta made to go defensive, but that team has underperformed defensively for years and years. I've actually liked their back 7 talent in the past, but they seem to not play as a group. They still allow too high a percentage. They've got some good players back there.
Yeah, but they're not going to show what Bill Belichick's strengths are anymore. I think if he wants too much power with a team, and that's the problem. You know, if he just says, hey, you know, I need to make the players' decisions here too in the draft. What the hell has that gotten him the last several years? So he has got to back off. He's got to swallow his ego and his pride and just say, you know what, let's finish this off in a nice, smooth way. I'm going to be a good human being and a team player. It's not about me. And that's what's going to happen if he ever gets another job.
So draft odds, Ron's draft odds, if you take the last 5 years, you could take longer or whatever. This is the one time Bill Belichick would be a favorite. Bill Belichick's drafts, which have been relatively dismal, minus 125 over Atlanta's drafts, which has been enormously dismal. So
yeah. Well, okay.
Atlanta still has to draft better, and maybe or maybe not, it would have approved with Belichick, but they've got a big problem in the draft room.
Right. Well, Atlanta, at least they drafted a good head coach, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a guy that people want to play for. He's got a really good reputation. He didn't do great with Tampa, obviously, the first time, but maybe he wasn't ready. We're going to find out. But it's also a part of that, you know, you bring in a defensive guy these days, you're gambling even more. So let's hope Raheem Morris works. Carolina, you know, their owner, David Tepper, nobody wants to work for the guy now after what he already has a track record of what he can be like and a temper, not a tepper. So we'll see what goes there. Dave Canales, I mean, you tell me about him. I looked him up and his name wasn't even on Google. So I don't know what to tell you.
I like the opportunity, the fresh opportunity to get somebody young who might be a star and may not be a star. Again, this is an organization that has talent issues. I mean, there's partly a lack of draft capital, partly the fact that they misuse the draft by constantly going from 7 or 8 picks to 5 or 6 picks. You don't build a lower level roster that way. They played well defensively again last year, considering how poorly the offense has been. But they've got to give this guy hope. They've got to give this guy a chance. I'm okay with the hire. I just think that this is not going to be a quick fix.
Right. And it's also going to be interesting to see how he deals with Bryce Young and figure it out in the next year. Is he really ready for this league or not? Right, Chris?
I was just checking the weather in Baltimore, and it is going to be in the mid-40s and 10-mile-an-hour winds. So
beautiful day.
Lower winds than expected. So I was wondering why my total was kind of bouncing around a little bit.
All right. It's playoff weather.
What's your excitement level for these two games? Because mine obviously is pretty high, but I think it's objectively two darn good games.
Well, my excitement level is personal and then just as a fan. The personal part is I'm pretty happy to see that the two teams I picked week 1, Baltimore and San Francisco, are favored to be where I expected them to be, heading towards the Super Bowl. I think, and I texted Cris earlier, and maybe, Ron, do you have a number on what the future Super Bowl game odds are yet?
They're up. They've been up all week.
Okay, yeah. But they moved at all?
I have to ask Cris that one.
Okay. Just a little bit. I mean, they've got the matchups there.
So what's Baltimore over against San Francisco? What's the line on that game?
That's anywhere from pick to San Francisco -1 the last time I checked.
Okay. Well, what I texted to Cris earlier was if you can get plus 190 now, or you know, if you could find a plus 200, but I guess not. If you could find a plus 190 now on Baltimore, that's the play to make future play, because I think after this week, and we'll talk about both teams, but to me, I think Baltimore is going to be the most impressive.
I don't think that's fair value. Yeah, I don't think that's fair market value.
Well, again, that's the old.
If you money line this game to that game, if you do probabilities, what's Baltimore's chance of winning this game? Let's say you think it's 70%. What's Baltimore's chance to win the next game? Let's say it's 50%.
Okay.
That's 0.35. That's not plus 190 range.
Okay. So what's the best value? Can you do a parlay of Baltimore to Baltimore now? Are you able to do that?
Sure.
Of course.
Okay. So what would be the odds on that?
You'd
Well,
have to
the
go
way you
site
do-
by site.
Which
I mean, would you be doing better than plus 190?
the current money line on Baltimore is about minus 200. And
Yeah,
then
it's gone up. It's shot up.
and then
Okay.
the money line on the worst case scenario. Well, no, I guess if they played San Francisco, the money line is minus 110 at this point.
Okay.
And so
But
that's
we
plus
think that'll change, right? We think that'll change because the game is going to have a San Francisco fan base.
I think
Right.
it goes Baltimore's way, but the problem you run into,
I do too.
is if they play the Lions, then they would be minus 220,
Okay.
and that would work out to be
Well, so you
plus
guys are the
118. So
Okay.
the plus, if you can get plus 190 right now, you're actually probably doing pretty well.
Okay, well, that's why I wanted to pick both your brains on this. You guys come at it from a different angle, and you're the two perfect guys to talk about this. So, if I'm predicting that Baltimore is going to be the most impressive after this weekend, and that's going to change the odds for next week, are you getting value then? That's what I'm asking. I mean, for now.
Well, let me put a disclaimer in because my
Okay.
calculation was flawed in a way because I just automatically put San Francisco in it.
Okay.
Now you have to factor in that Detroit has a chance too,
Of
whether
course,
it's
of course.
20% or whatever.
Yeah.
So then you got to do the calculations different. And I think it's going to come out to about a 50-50. It's no longer 0.35. It's going to be closer to 50-50 in terms of that matter.
Okay. So if you do a parlay now, Baltimore to Baltimore, whoever they play, is there more value on that than there is the plus 190?
I would just take the 190 at this point.
That's what I'm asking.
Yep.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm considering doing that anyway. I was thinking of doing that. I did do. I thought it was ridiculous. I think I got. Let me look this up on the pendings here.
Okay. I think it's a fascinating discussion before the fact, instead of, trying to figure it out later and all that stuff and the what ifs. I want to know, where can you get the best value now if you really like a team? And I really like Baltimore.
Well, Ron, let me ask you, what do you make the line? What do you think the odds are that Detroit beats Kansas City? What would you make that fair market odds?
Oh, that both teams get there. That
Detroit wins against Kansas City.
So if Detroit loses, this week. You lose the bet.
Oh yeah, it's a good question. And by the way, Cris,
Or is it just if they?
She loses the bet.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're saying that Detroit will not only meet Kansas City but beat Kansas City.
Yep.
Yeah, that's got to be some long odds there. So you got to be 0.3, 10%.
There's only four teams.
Huh?
There's only four teams. So
yeah, but you got to do the calculation. Kansas City has to win this week to get there. Detroit has to win this week to get there. So I would say for Kansas City, there's only if you like Baltimore, there's only a 30% chance that Kansas City gets to the game. And there's a 25% chance that the Lions get to the game. No, it's long odds. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Very succinct answer there, Ron. Thanks.
Hey, by the way, Cris, your picture is a little bit fuzzy. Now it's better. Did you see that too, Ron, or no?
No, it's pretty good. It's pretty sharp right now.
I think it's the makeup he's wearing. I'm not sure, but
okay.
Anyway.
So the purpose of asking that question is, what odds were there on that?
I got it plus 2,500, which I thought was pretty generous.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I have to have my calculator in my head. I would say that's not necessarily bad value or good value.
Okay. What are your what are you guys thinking about this game at this point? I can tell you that I still think that I think it's going to be a lower scoring game.
Which game are we talking about now? Baltimore?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just think that Kansas City's offense looks a little bit better than they really are because they played two depleted defenses in a row. They did come back fresh a couple of weeks ago after they were able to rest people after their brutal end of the season. But you're looking at yet another road game for Kansas City. And I just see it as a slower paced game. And I think it's going to be difficult I've got a very large future on Kansas City, and all I've been doing is parlaying whatever I can into Baltimore alt lines to cover it because I like Baltimore to win the game.
Well, I do too. I'm just wondering what's the latest on the health of Pacheco? Because he's got
fine.
a toe. He's fine.
He's not fine. He's dinged up, but he's playing.
Yeah, he's got a toe and an ankle, and he hasn't dressed for practice all week. So is it all just, hey, we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to make sure he puts no pressure on it, or is it something to worry about?
It's
Dr.
not a factor.
Marmolewski.
It's not a factor in my handicapping. I see
Okay.
these reports all the time, and the guy played. There was, he's not 37 years old or something.
No,
like
I know,
that,
but it's
so.
if he didn't practice all week, that's usually something to think about. I hope everything is fine. Obviously, you got the Chiefs with the second ranked defense in the league. What the hell are they going to do against Lamar Jackson? Let's hear from the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo. Okay, number 2 there, Cris, on facing Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson back-to-back weeks, and hoping their linebacker Willie Gay is good for this game as well from a pass defense standpoint. Number 2,
they are
please.
different quarterbacks. What we want to do to them might change a little bit. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but he's just like, if you put the film on, I mean, it's like, okay, how do you defend that? It's another one of those, right? Because there's some things he does that nobody else does, and the best thing we can do is try to contain him as best we can. To me, the best thing we did last week, if we could do this again, which is hard to do, is limit the explosive passes. I mean, I think that helped us. Then it makes him kind of matriculate down the field, and hopefully we can make a play somewhere along the way. The Willie thing is a really good one. I don't know where we'll be right now, but he, you all know he adds a piece in passing downs. Now, as we talk about that, we got to get him in those passing downs. Last time we played this crew, I know it's a different offensive coordinator, but we only had 11 third downs, and 5 or 6 of them were 1 to 4. We need that needs to change to have any kind of success or have a chance at success. So that's what we'll be trying to do.
Okay, so Willie Gay has had a neck problem, limited in practice yesterday. I don't know what's going on today yet. I haven't seen anything, but I know Spags wants him in there badly. So to at least affect the pass rush. What do you think, guys?
Well, there was no pass rush for either of these teams last week, which was surprising. Neither one produced a sack, but that's good for Mahomes as far as scrambling around and doing everything that way. I think they're just going to have to put a little bit of a spy on Mahomes and cover the main receivers, because if you get past Rashee Rice and if you get past Travis Kelce, you're not really scared of anybody. Scantling has all that speed and he can go over the top, but Kansas City defends over the top very well.
Right. It's interesting to see the stats on Mahomes and Lamar, because everybody talks about how great a passer Mahomes is, and obviously he is. Do you know that their pass percentage this year is exactly the same? 67.2%, exactly the same. The big difference in my mind, 44 drops. Kansas City leads the league. You imagine getting half of those back and what Mahomes' pass percentage would be? I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff when you think about that.
Yeah, well,
tough to overcome for sure.
Yep.
It's scheme too, because Todd Monken has a different scheme for Lamar Jackson. Not all pass percentages are created equal.
No, but you still want to be up there. I mean, that's an important thing. Whatever your
Oh, of
scheme
course
is.
you want to be up there. In this league, if you're near 60, you're falling behind.
Okay, I got a quiz for both of you. Who led the National Football League during the regular season in drops?
I wouldn't even know that.
This is fascinating to me.
I would say
Take a guess.
CeeDee Lamb.
Nope. Good guess, though. What do you think, Chris?
Dang it. I think I know who it is. And
Well, you don't win a car or anything, so you could just come up with a name.
was it the guy? What's his name? From Kansas City?
No.
No?
Nope.
Right, never mind.
It's our boy, Puka Nacua.
Oh, really?
He led the league with 13 drops this year. And you know who was second? Tyreek Hill was second.
That's what I was thinking. Oh, no, that wasn't what I was thinking of.
Anyway.
I wanted to answer the question on the Ravens -2.5 first half. Justin, find me that line so I can bet it, because it doesn't exist anywhere. Go ahead, Ted.
All right, let's hear from Patrick Mahomes on the challenge of having exactly what we've been talking about, a slightly lesser than elite offense this season. Let's hear from Mahomes.
I'd say it's just challenging in the fact that I had to deal with a lot of adversity, not having the success that I've had in the past. Knock on wood, I haven't had to deal with any of like the injuries or anything I've dealt with before in a season. So I call those seasons challenging, but at the same time, being able to not win all the games and going out there and have big stats and all that different type of stuff has been different. But it's taught me how to win in different ways and become the best quarterback for our team, not necessarily the best quarterback for stats and stuff like that, but the best quarterback I can be for us to go out there and get wins. I would say it's just
I like the way that he pretty much spelled it out and truthfully, not just QB speak.
Yep. I hate the fact that he's so darn good, and you can't even dislike him. He's just a hard guy to dislike. So
there's a Mahomes factor every game, every quarter. Whatever's going on, he could pull something out of a hat, and you never know what's going to happen. One more thing I want to discuss here. An underrated home field advantage for Baltimore. I don't think most people talk about that. That place was a total zoo last week. It was incredibly loud. You heard the players from both sides talking about it. And, I mean, I don't think most people think about Baltimore as a great home field advantage. But let's hear from the greatest kicker who ever lived, Justin Tucker, on earning home field number 4, Chris.
It's something that we've worked for and we've earned. And then for this city, this is a town full of people that love their birds, they love ball, they know ball, and to reward them with a championship experience and an opportunity for us to go to the Super Bowl here in Baltimore, it's very, very special.
A little more. He's got one more question there, please.
A lot of obviously big games in this stadium. Just speaking to that atmosphere of the environment, just what are your expectations for what you're going to be walking into on Sunday?
Yeah, so this last weekend in the divisional round, I don't think I'd ever experienced the bank quite as electric as that. That was awesome, man. The place was rocking, and I know our fans are going to kick it up another notch this weekend coming up. So, as far as what we're expecting our fans to be absolutely lit up and ready to go, and we will be doing the exact same thing. We'll be preparing this week like this game is for all intents and purposes, this is the opportunity that we've all worked for our whole lives.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to bring up, though, the fact that let's put in a little bit of an edge there, a jump factor for the home field, because Baltimore has been just going nuts over their team, and it's going to be fascinating how that affects Kansas City this week.
Well, first of all, he needs to improve his kicking. He was down to 86.5% this year. So
he's out of the Hall of Fame. Kick him out.
He should be booted. And I guess some of the news that came out this week, which I had never heard before, were how apathetic the Buffalo Bills fans were last week. I just heard it from everybody. The place was like a morgue, and the team wasn't helped by the home crowd at all. So I found that awfully surprising.
Yeah, well, maybe part of that was the weather. It might have been so you couldn't hear them. Everybody's wearing gloves, but sometimes that comes into play. Yeah, Ron, I see Your eyeballs are moving like a slot machine. You want to say something?
No. I don't care about the home field advantage. I'm not bumping it up for any reason. The rest differential has been evened out. I don't care about all that. It's a championship game. It's really the matchups on the field matter to me. Power ratings too, and I think both Cris and I have a disparity in what the line opened and what the line is in terms of our power ratings. But I don't know what Kansas City's game plan is going to be for stopping the run in this game.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about the rest factor coming off of last week. Baltimore got off to a slow start, and then they picked it up. And that's sort of figured, they hadn't played in a few weeks. And the same with San Francisco in some respects. We'll get to the San Francisco in a minute. But overall, I mean, the Ravens have won 7 in a row, and they're doing everything right. And now they're back into a nice flow. And you got to love that from week to week.
Yeah, the flow for Baltimore was good. The flow for San Francisco was good. But you have to remember the teams they played, Green Bay and Houston, were both, peaking as well. And they were off highs, and they were both full of confidence. I mean, everything Houston was doing was full of confidence, and the same for Green Bay. So it's not just because they had a slow start. It's because their opponents were good.
Yeah. So what have you guys done in this game? Have you done more than just straights? Have you been all over the place on, like early first half stuff and whatever?
I would like to just mention that one of the oddities is that fear actually affects this line, I believe, and that's the fear of what Mahomes can do, because the metrics and the numbers clearly say this line is even short at 4. If this was 3, 4, or 5 weeks ago, the line would have been at least 6. And but everybody's scared about what Reed and Mahomes and their history bring to the table. So,
it's great if you love Baltimore, though.
I don't have an answer. I mean, I'm fearful of it also. The model says to bet Baltimore. I have a hell of a lot more confidence in Baltimore, even with Mahomes and Reed, than I do in the next game. But that's where I'm sitting.
Yeah. Well, if my money is on the line in this game, I'm more looking at not the possibilities of Mahomes finding a way to do that. I'm going with what I like. And what I like is what Baltimore's doing. Kansas City has to prove they can play with them. Baltimore's already beat the hell out of San Francisco in a game, and fairly. Okay, there were no. That wasn't by accident. Okay, so I think we've already seen what they can do. They've beaten the better teams. So why should this be any different? If Mahomes pulls it out, congratulations, good luck. But my money's on Baltimore, and you're getting value if it should be 5 or more. That's it.
We had this conversation on Tuesday, among other conversations, about where the line would go. Would it flip from 3, 3.5, or whatever? Because the early line of 3, both Cris and I agreed, was short.
Right.
It may not be short to the general public because it's Mahomes on the other side, and you don't know. I mean, that what Cris just said about fear is that big thing. For me, because I have futures as well, and I kind of did it backwards, kind of the wrong way, because I saw a plus 450 Kansas City to win the AFC and a plus 5. So I said, I better take the 5. And then later I saw a plus 525, and I said, well, that's a slap in the face. I better take the 525. And Cris has even better odds than that.
Really?
He did much better than I did. But the bottom line is I'm still sitting with a ton of value. And instead of looking for alternate ways, I went the easy route. I bet it back on Baltimore minus 180.
I've got plus 615. And what I've been doing is just tying in games that I'm betting anyway. And I'm parlaying them into the Baltimore alternate line, because I don't like to hedge and not be able to win the hedge also. I'm not going to give back equity just on a straight money line purchase or anything that I can't win also. I just hate that.
Okay. Well, one thing Cris said that I think hit home with me is he said, treat it as a separate entity. And so that's what I did. And instead of going the alternate, I just closed it off. I know I'm going to win either way, but I'm going to win 2.5 times more if Baltimore wins at Pick'em than I would, and I'll win, a smaller amount if Kansas City wins because I leveraged it all the way. And the reason I leveraged it is well known because Miami had no chance against Baltimore, against Kansas City because of the circumstances. And then Buffalo was involved in this whole rest differential thing too.
Right. So you're done with the regular plays because of what you've already done, and then whatever.
But I also have Baltimore -3.
Oh, you
I
do?
treated that
Okay.
separately. I mean, I
Okay.
did that right away, and then I worried about what was going on.
Oh,
even-
good.
even
So you
before
got value
Chris and I-
there. You got great value.
Yeah, I mean, the ball is still a funny shape and this and that, whatever, but I have the right side according to my numbers and my metrics. And, not everybody will agree, but on this show, we have 3 agreements.
By the way, I got one more factor that we've been talking about. I've been mentioning for weeks. Finally, it looks like we'll get to see a little 2 tight end set for Baltimore with Mark Andrews being back. And I want to see how much they use that and how it affects this ball game and maybe the next one.
What do you think, Ron, are the odds? Out of how many games do you think the game could ever get away from Kansas City? Because Kansas City's never let one of these games get away from them. And Baltimore just has that firepower. If things go wrong, they can pile on some points. Out of how many games do you think Baltimore wins by 25 or more?
1, because I don't trust Harbaugh's pass defense against Mahomes protecting a lead.
No, I mean, but if they played out of how many games would it take them for Baltimore to get the blowout against that team? I mean,
you use 25, so that's a large number. If you said double digit, that's a different story. 25, I'd say 1 out of 10.
That's where I kind of put it, and I did bet -25 or for them to win by 25 or more at plus 2,500.
25
Okay.
or more.
So they're saying that would only happen 4% chance, 1 out of every 25 games or so. And no, it would happen more than that because of my metrics, because of the matchups.
Well, I like Baltimore to potentially win by double digits, but 25?
Well, if they're going to give you, but see, this is the way you have to look at it. It's
Okay.
obviously more than likely a loser, but
Right.
I put the odds that it could happen certainly more often than 1 out of 25 times, and I calculated it exactly as Ron did, between 1 out of every 10 to 12 games.
Okay,
Because
so it's a straight value play in that respect, right?
it's just a value play. So.
Right. Got it. All
Yeah,
right.
I mean, what would be the number at 14.5? Like they have to win by 15 or more. Because I think then you're getting into territory where if you could get 8-1 on that might be interesting.
No, that's not going to be near that.
Okay, so the books are going to price you out because of these, 25, the way they do it with the VIG and stuff on these. You have to find a real alternate line, and so basically that's what you did.
Well, here's what's really nuts about it is William Hill, Caesars, has the -20.5 at plus 548. So add 4 more points. And
Yeah, so that's crazy because then you could go in game to protect yourself that way.
Well, exactly. So,
God, I left my abacus in the other room. I got to figure this one out.
Yeah.
You
So
can
that's
so-
a huge gap. 20.5 to 25.
if that doesn't teach you that you need to go up and down each of these places like a fine tooth comb, I don't know what will. So you've got William Hill that's going to pay you plus 550 minus 20.5. And right now I can still bet 25 or more at plus 2,100 for that extra 4 points. I can't pass that up.
Okay. Go for it, baby. Anything else on this game?
That's all I got.
That's
Okay,
good enough.
let's talk about the Niners and the Lions. Bobby Lane, is he available to at least come off the bench this week from the 57 broken ankle there, Vegas, Chris?
I don't think. Yeah, no, I think I think it did finally heal.
It healed. Okay, good. So maybe limited in practice, but possible third string quarterback behind Jared Goff and Tobin Rote, who won the title for them in 1957. By the way, the last time the Lions went on the road in the playoffs.
San Francisco.
Exactly. 31-27.
I hit that quiz question on Tuesday from Cris.
Oh, you did? Okay. Where was it played at, boys?
Navin Field.
No. I don't even know what you just said. Kezar.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
They went on to beat the Cleveland Browns, who are the Baltimore Ravens.
Got it.
So one way or another, if Detroit wins this game, we have that narrative of them possibly playing the two teams that they beat the last time they actually won a road playoff game.
That is very good, yes.
Or the season ends as it started, Detroit and Kansas City.
All right. Obviously, the 0-for-11 streak by the Lions on the road is incredibly old news, so we'll let that pass. In the meantime, the current Lions are in a pretty good spot here as the team that nobody expects to win, but I really believe this game totally comes down. I should say totally. That's ridiculous. It very much comes down to Debo. Is Debo going to be able to play reasonably healthy, enough plays to be him and to cause some issues for the Lions defense, which I don't fully trust. But I think if he is not out there much, or if he's just a decoy and not a Debo, I think that changes this game. What the Lions. Go ahead.
Now, there's a lot of scenarios in this game, and I personally think any one of 5 scenarios are important. But the one I would put up just ahead of the others is Detroit's secondary. What happens with Detroit's secondary? And part of that is based on their disguising blitzes and a lot of other things to impact Brock Purdy and so on. But it's really going to come down to the Lions have allowed a lot of yards this playoff season.
Yep,
a lot of yards through the air. And so we could talk all about Debo, and he's obviously very important, and everybody's focusing on him. But if otherwise, we're talking about a track meet of the highest caliber in this particular game if Detroit doesn't stiffen against the pass.
Right.
Well, the Lions have given up an average of over 320 yards passing over the last 6 games.
Wow.
And they're just getting torched, obviously.
Much.
But the oddity, though, they've been winning. And they have a strange way of disrupting the other quarterbacks. Stafford is the only one of those 6 quarterbacks that exceeded his passer rating, his normal passer rating. They've held all the other quarterbacks to either the same or below. So they're number 1 over that time span in interceptions. And I think they're number 3 in sacks. 19 sacks over the last 6 weeks. So they're doing some things very well on defense. And obviously we know that their run stop is very good. So they're doing some stuff very well. They've got chinks in the armor. If they can, the key on this is you've got to get a turnover. You have to win the turnover battle in this game, and you can't fall behind. You cannot.
Well, I think there are 2 keys turnover is always going to be major, especially now, but also pressuring Brock Purdy. Okay. Yeah. Put him in a spot like the Packers did for a while, where he looked like below average nothing out there. And if they could do that, it's anybody's ball game. But I love the fact that there was a little fun this week in the Jared Goff news conference. A guy asked him about the greatness of the individual players on San Francisco compared to the very young, better players on Detroit. Let's hear that. It's going to go on for about a minute here, Cris. And the question he asked and how Jared responds to, hey, we're pretty damn good too. Let's hear number 5.
Jared, you guys got a lot of really good players, obviously, but maybe not viewed. What's that?
I said thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe not viewed though as the superstars, like maybe the 49ers have or other people.
All right.
But I mean, guys like St. Brown and getting you.
Yeah, St. Brown was first team All-Pro.
Right.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're making the point. Absolutely. But do you feel like this is a chance for more people to see what you have?
I know what you're getting at. Yes, I do. I think we've got a ton of great players who maybe haven't had the national stage that up to this point that a lot of other guys have, and obviously they have a ton of good players as well, and a ton of Pro Bowlers and all Pro players over there, and we feel like we've got a lot of good players too, though, like you mentioned, and excited to play on another national stage and be able to showcase that.
Okay, so I love the way Jared handled that. Yeah, he's really getting smooth with his media availabilities now. Anyway, he's a pro at it, but there's a lot of truth to that, and that's why I wanted to mention that. Everybody talks about McCaffrey and Debo and this and that, and they should. But those young guys for Detroit are really showing up big time right now.
They sure are, and I recognize the guy posing those questions, Bob Wojnarowski. So
okay.
I don't know if you ever knew him. I really like him. Good Twitter follow too.
No, I don't know him, but the question is, how good is Jared Goff right now? Is he up to this? And I think that one of the best guys to answer that question, who's faced him a billion times. Let's hear from Fred Warner, number 6. You got 6?
A lot better. Not to say that he wasn't good when we played him back, when he was with the Rams, but I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now with the way that he's playing. I think he finished top 3 in passing yards this season. And, I think just the delivery of the football, his decisiveness, obviously with the amount of playmakers that he has on that side, I think he's the one that's leading that group. And he's the reason why they're at where they're at right now. You need your quarterback to be the leader of the team and the offense and get yourself in a position to be in a game like this. A lot.
Okay, so obviously he's going to be, he's not going to say anything negative about him, but that guy has faced him more than anybody. And he really knows exactly what Goff has to. And basically the bottom line is a little pass protection, and Jared is tough to beat.
He's fine, and he's the number 1 quarterback in the NFL over the last 2 seasons with touchdown to interception ratio. So I don't know what you expect out of somebody to earn some respect. All you hear are, negative aspects of anything they can bring up. So what if he's 0-5 against San Francisco his last 5 outings? Different teams, different times. How many quarterbacks have taken 2 different teams to the conference championships? When you look at the other 4, those are all Hall of Famers. And now You've got Jared Goff.
Well, Jared Goff's not a Hall of Famer, but a guy who might be a Hall of Famer, give me a call in about 15 years and we'll talk about it, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And you know what? He doesn't mind being a big, fat dog in this game. Number 7, please.
I feel like we've been the underdog for a long time. Well, since I've been here, we've been the underdog for a lot of the times, a lot of the games. We're away going to their house. So, I get it. Understandable. Niners are a strong team. They've been strong all year. But, at the end of the day, you got to go play ball. Both teams got to go play. That's just – I don't even look into those numbers too much. I just go out there and, try to focus on the game plan, the opponent, what we have up next. But, yeah, we're underdogs. Like I said, we've been underdogs for a while here, so it's nothing new to us, but we got to go.
Embrace it, right?
Ron, what do you think about this? I was looking at the odds for him to be Super Bowl MVP. The odds were so long that I'm like, he's one of the top lines that could really have a breakout game.
What is he, like 10-1 or something?
No, it's like 80 or 100-1. Something.
What? That's insane.
Yeah.
St. Brown right now, of course, because it has to be 80-1 because they're X to 1 to even win the Super Bowl right now.
Well, that's true too in that respect. But you also figure if he has 3 touchdown catches, that's great. But who threw it to him, right? It's always going to be the quarterback first that you think of.
Well,
yeah, but the touchdowns are always going to be after the yard type,
Yeah, well, again, depending.
Highlight dependent.
Right.
So one thing about the last clips that you played, and what's the right word for it for me? I mean, it's evident for me. When you played the clip of Jared Goff, the one word that came to mind was comfortable. Jared Goff is comfortable.
Totally.
I mean, he's no longer a Ram. He's a Lion. He's been welcomed. He's not feeling any pressure. He knows where he is. They built him up. The whole team has been built up from that 10-1 start or whatever it was under Dan Campbell to where it is now. He's comfortable. This is his team. Either the Lions are good enough or they're not good enough, but we're not going to be talking about Goff getting flustered. If he's flustered, it's because the San Francisco front four plus, let's not make a story out of what's not a story.
Yeah. If Nick Bosa's got his hands in his mask all day, then he's going to be flustered. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the media always tries to make something more out. I watch these tennis matches and it's somebody's fault that something's going on. Oh, why did he do this? Why did he do that? It's because the other player made him do that. I mean, it's not always something you did wrong. It's something somebody else did right.
I always say, don't say the media, because every media person is different. Okay. You got ex-players in the media doing that shit too. Remember that.
Well, I just pissed away a steak dinner, and I'm on St. Brown at 125-1. I couldn't resist. So.
Well, now we're talking value, guys. Okay.
So here's a question for you guys, starting with Cris. This is the first time Dan Campbell has been in this situation. And on Tuesday, I talked to Cris and I said, I applaud him for not going crazy the first two games because he knew he had the better team. On paper, he doesn't have the better team right now. And I think he's going to do something weird in this game. Maybe it's weird good, maybe it's not. What are your impressions of what Dan Campbell is going to do in this game?
I think, you know what? Surprisingly, I have not heard a lot of commentary, so to speak, that of a lot of like feeling type stuff. So there's certainly not there's not a lot of euphoria. I think that his job and what he is doing is getting him back down to business. As a lot of people have referenced, they just had these 2 home games. We mentioned it after the first one that it really bothered me how they over celebrated and they made a huge big deal about the first playoff win, and they broke the decibel record last week with Tampa Bay, and there was a big relief they got by them. But I think this team, if you remember that halftime speech or the after the game speech was, I can't believe you don't have that clip. Do you have that clip?
No, I
wouldn't be able to play it.
We played a similar one the previous week. That's why I didn't want to air it. So
yeah, this one he had another one where he's almost in tears, and
I saw that. Yeah,
and you don't understand how much you belong and what you've accomplished, but we're only halfway there. There's 2 down,
2 more
to go. Blah blah blah, and then there's this other video that I was watching this week that resurfaced from 2022 when he was first hired. And he had cut practice short and it was a bad practice. And this guy is speaking from the heart. It's undeniable. He's going on and on and on. Please trust me. I promise you, we are going to be prepared. And he explains how he's going to get everybody in shape by game 1. We're not going to be a team that gets in shape week 8. And you're going to see the dividends pay out. You're going to see how you're in better shape than everybody. And there's something above. This team is talented and lines up a lot closer than you think with San Francisco. San Francisco may have 4 out of the top 5 best players on the field, but 6 out of the top 11 are probably on Detroit.
All right.
So,
well, Cris, I feel like running through a wall now after you just went rah-rah on me. What can I tell you?
But it's more than the talent. I mean, this team is genuinely talented. It's not some sort of Hollywood story.
Anybody who knows the game is not underestimating that at all. forget the average fan. It doesn't mean a damn thing. The bottom line is everybody respects this team, what they've done, and their amount of youth that is high caliber players. I mean, their draft, Ron, grade their draft over the last 3 years, how that's turned out for them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did it kind of backwards, forwards or whatever. But when they got Branch, their safety, with their 4th pick in the draft, I said, wait a second, they just stole somebody who should have been in the first round. They panicked early because they lost Witherspoon to Seattle, but they still got players that fit their culture nevertheless. They didn't get the cornerback they wanted. I mean, it would have been ideal to have Witherspoon. Think of what he did in Seattle. And Seattle, blindsided them there. So they panicked. They traded up, down, or whatever. They had 5 early draft picks. They cut it down to 4. But in the end, they ended up with Detroit-type players and value with Laporta and value with Branch.
Yeah, and the other guy that you didn't mention, I don't know about value because where they got him, but Jahmyr Gibbs, I remember calling you that day during the draft saying, wait a minute, that's a little early for this guy, isn't it? And you said, you know what, it is, but I like the fit. So
yeah,
now it's
it was a good fit. It was early, but they had competition. Cincinnati wanted him. That Cincinnati down. There was competition for Gibbs. They couldn't let him get past 20. At the beginning of the draft cycle, he was, if you wanted number of running backs over 1.5 in the first round, you could have got 2 to 1. Right. Now, that was stealing once you did a little homework on Gibbs, because you knew he would, I knew, let's say, that he was going in the first round. Did I think he was going to Detroit when he did? There's no way, because if you really want a running back, you would have taken the Atlanta guy at 8.
Right. I totally remember calling you on that. So we talked about Goff and St. Brown and blah, 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 and Laporta's back, and it's nice that he's reasonably healthy. But Gibbs is a huge factor in this game. And when you think about what Aaron Jones did to that San Francisco run D last week, he made them look like a very average team. So let's hear from Nick Bosa, number 8. They better be better this week.
Yeah, we definitely got hit on a lot of crack tosses. Weren't fitting them great, but it's a play that we're going to see with them for sure with 26. So we're going to emphasize that this week. Hopefully, put it out early but overall, I think we played really physical. I think the edge guys are starting to get a really good feel for the scheme. Chase, Randy, and Rob. And I was happy to see Eric out there feeling good, feeling healthy, and I think JK had one of his best games. So yeah, we're going to need another one.
Yes, they are. So that's Nick Bosa on the run D, and that is a huge part of this game, guys.
Yeah, if Detroit doesn't get that run game going, they're in for a long afternoon, and it's going to be miserable. And the other thing that concerns me, I want to see how short that grass is. They're going to have that grass a little bit longer this week, because that'll slow down Detroit a little bit, because, Gibbs wouldn't have been caught like Aaron Jones was going to the end zone. Gibbs would have been in that end zone waiting for the defender.
Well, that brings me back to the way before you were born, Cris, when the late, great Maury Wills used to steal bases for the Dodgers. And what the Giants used to do when the Dodgers went up to San Francisco is they would wet the dirt so he couldn't run as fast from first base. And you know what? Welcome to San Francisco again, boys, even though it's Santa Clara. Why wouldn't you do that? If that's an advantage, I would make it a little bit tougher. A slightly slower track's got to help, right?
Well, the Tigers used to do it with their infields, because
every team does it to a point, but I'm just using an example. But that, if I would think they'd be crazy if they didn't do that.
Hey, visiting locker rooms are sometimes painted pink because of psychological studies and stuff. So anything could happen.
Yeah, but this is in-game stuff. I mean, if you're actually slowing down a guy a little bit, maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. Who knows? There was a lot of slipping and sliding last week on the wet grass, but so that shouldn't be an issue this week.
No, I want to say, when you're looking at handicapping this game, as we're getting down to the nitty gritty for this particular game, like I've said, what we saw last week doesn't mean you're going to see the same thing the next week. San Francisco is going to make some adjustments. They didn't play well against Green Bay, and they shouldn't even be in this game, frankly, except for dropped interceptions and all kinds of other stuff, missed field goals, the timing, what they did on the last drive. There were so many things that Green Bay had this game in hand. But San Francisco is going to make adjustments. This is their third year in a row that they've been to this point, and they fell short with maybe better teams than what got there. They thought they could beat Philly last year. They had the Rams beat the year before.
Yeah,
they don't want to fall short again. Otherwise, you have that same situation that Buffalo had for years, that New Orleans have had recently when they were the best team with Drew Brees and they couldn't get over the hump. This is a big game for San Francisco, and I think you're going to see a really big effort defensively.
You are so good at queuing up the next soundbite, Ron. That was so perfect, because we're going to play number 10 here, Cris, from Brandon Ayuk, who talks about the fact that he is more fired up than ever because of losing 2 straight and a chance to go to the Super Bowl. It's your number 10.
It changes a lot of stuff. I mean, especially when you have wristbands and things like that. And
No, 10, not 9.
You just got to switch.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, for sure, because we're here now for the third time, trying to get over the hump, trying to get to the other side, and it's just the times now, the times right now. That's it. Oh, yeah, for sure, because
that's Brandon Ayuk basically saying, you know what, we need this. We're tired of losing and not making it to the Super Bowl. Yes, Cris, you got a look on your face.
I just ruined the market. I was going to recommend something, and I just destroyed the market by betting at a Pinnacle because the whole board just moved on it. Ron, what do you think about this? I think it's nuts. I like the Lions over 9.5 first half points.
I mean, it sounds low to me. The only thing you have to worry about in there is the Lions don't kick a lot of field goals, 21 in the regular season. So they're more apt to go for it at certain times. Now, Campbell played it closer to the vest last week when they had a 4th and 5 or whatever, and they went for the field goal. Thank goodness for, a lot of people understood that you have to do that. So I think he's learned his lesson from that one game. But if the situation is 4th and 2 and less, if you remember on the play before, they ran the ball because they wanted to get to a point where they could go for it on 4th down. That's the only worry, because 9.5 is short otherwise.
Yeah, that is pretty short, no doubt about it. What were the odds on that one? Was it just straight minus 110 or something on that?
No, it was 9.5 over 140, and I bet it. I made a mistake, and I bet it at Pinnacle, and some people may not know this, but a lot of offshores automatically move their lines based on when other books move their lines. So there's some offshores that are tied into Pinnacle. So as soon as Pinnacle moves their line, you'll see a handful of shops immediately move when Pinnacle moves.
So what did they move it to?
Shops tied into Circa lines, and when Circa moves, another bunch of different shops are going to move when Circa moves, and other shops are tied in with Bookmaker and such.
Right. So what was the move that they made?
Well, I bet it at minus 9.5 over 42, I think, and now it went up to like minus 160, minus 155.
Good value.
I see 165.
Okay, another quiz, guys. We talked about drop passes this year, right? 44, the most by Kansas City. What team had the least amount of drop passes this year?
So we'll go with San Francisco then.
And you, Cris?
Lions.
Nope. San Francisco by far. They had 9 dropped passes compared to 44 for Kansas.
Well, that's because they were always winning and running the ball.
Oh, okay.
Ron, what do you think about Ron, which Purdy do we see here? Because we've seen a mixture. I believe he has 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions, and 3 touchdown passes over the last 3 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Why are you asking Ron and not asking Aiden Hutchinson? It's his job to find out what Purdy are we going to see this week, and that's the truth. Yes or no?
It's more than Hutchinson, because what Hutchinson
You know what I mean.
does is clog up other things. What do we see in Purdy? I think Shanahan scripts the play so he gets off a little bit better in terms of the start of the game, that he gives them the confidence. We're not playing with a wet ball now. And apparently some people are talking about that wet ball and whatever. And I haven't researched that, so I don't want to get into that. I just think he'll have a little bit more confidence. The problem is, if Deebo Samuel doesn't go, he loses one of those slot weapons where he could take a small gain and make it into a big game. So he's going to rely on Kittle and everybody else.
You're amazing, Ron, because you did it again. He brings up Shanahan. He talks about what Deebo means. Let's hear the last cut of the day from Coach Shanahan on what is the importance of Deebo on their offense. Let's hear number 9.
It changes a lot of stuff. I mean, especially when you have wristbands and things like that. And, you just got to switch some guys around, which is always a challenge for those guys. It happened during the Cleveland game, and we didn't handle it that well. I thought we handled it better today than we did then, but it is a huge challenge. I mean, Deebo's obviously one of our better players, but he also is a unique guy that goes to some certain spots. So you gotta be adjusting that all game. It changes a lot of stuff. I mean,
there you go. So the adjustments have to be made, not just by, forget the defense, it's their own offensive, because when he's not out there, it's more of just an average kind of, okay, we can't use him in so many different ways. That's why I just think he's just a huge factor in this game.
I think it was I'll throw it to you in a second, Ron. I think it was really obvious that Purdy was not trusted. And that kind of made it out into the public. If I was San Francisco, I'd pull what they did with Stroud and go for the end zone first play out of the gate and try to beat that Detroit secondary. Go ahead, Ron.
Now, 2 thoughts. Number 1, first of all, you could find minus 145 on Detroit at Heritage if you wanted that 9.5.
There you go.
Okay.
He's already shot.
And secondly, in terms of, I lost my train of thought as far as what I was going to say about Shannon. I think I talked a lot about Dan Campbell, but Shanahan has to learn how to make adjustments as well.
Absolutely.
He's good in the first quarter, but they didn't make adjustments. You could say the fourth quarter drive, which meant 55 minutes before they made adjustments last week. But they've got to be better if plan A doesn't work, what's my plan B? And that's been one of Shanahan's fourth quarter problems in the past.
Right.
They better do some contingency planning. If Deebo does this, if Deebo can't do that, if Kittle gets banged up, they better have a plan B and C.
Yeah, and there's also, I guess, a reasonable chance when you think about it. Okay, so Deebo is, let's say, 85%, and it's a shoulder. So until he falls on it, he's going to be fine. Right? I mean, it's not going to hurt you running or anything, but it only takes one play. So maybe he's great for the first half and he takes a big hit and he's done. Who knows?
No, defensive players know when somebody's hurt and they're going to bang them after the play.
Yeah. Of course. So let's see how that affects the Niners and if they do have to make adjustments should he need to come out of the game. Shanahan, I hope you're better than your dad at this stuff because I wasn't a fan in that department.
The goal is the same. Get pressure on both of these quarterbacks because you need to disrupt them. Purdy's pretty good. He's got that quick release. And Goff does pretty well as long as he doesn't get pressured. And we've got a replacement on his for Joshua Jackson. So who really didn't fare well replacing him last week. How do you see the pressure affecting both of these quarterbacks?
Well, first of all, I want to say you are 1,000% correct, Chris, but it's also every quarterback in the league is affected by pressure. So, I mean, why would these two guys be? The big difference is that Jared Goff has little mobility, and at least Purdy can scramble around a little bit. So, in that respect, slight edge to Purdy, but outside of that, quick release, Goff, and if he sees it coming, he's going to have to get rid of the ball. That's all, and he knows how to do it.
Yeah, both quarterbacks are going to be tasked at throwing quicker passes to get going and not worry about that. Purdy's not known as the most mobile quarterback, but he's mobile enough to have a rolling pocket. Right. And I think that would be something, if I were coordinating for them, you give them some different looks, moving pockets or whatever. On the flip side, if you're talking about pressure, the other way, I think Goff will be fine. He's a seasoned veteran and so on. The thing about Purdy, Detroit disguises its blitzes, and the game might be won or lost between whether those blitzes are picked up or not picked up.
Yep. I think what I worry about with Goff is San Francisco's strength on defense is the middle, which is where Goff likes to throw the ball and where the Lions have been most effective. If you take that away, I've got visions of an ugly pick six flying, with Goff trying to, throw the ball out to the flat and not seeing somebody. I just see it in my head already. So I do worry about
that's your Lions paranoia, though, more than anything, I think.
You're not paranoid if everybody is really out to get you.
Good line.
That is great.
So the bottom line is, I know, midway through the week, Cris on a different show had a disagreement as far as who was going to win or who was going to cover on this game. And for me, I don't have an edge in my power ratings. I do think San Francisco is going to make some adjustments. There are a lot of battle lines back and forth, but the line seems to be trending now towards 7.5. Do you see it actually getting there as a solid 7.5?
If Debo is announced in, yes, I think it is going to.
I think
I think it's going to settle at 7.5 or 8. If they announce him out, we might see some 6.5s again.
Really?
But
you think it'll go down to 6.5?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
But we weren't arguing about who was going to win or cover necessarily. My model likes Detroit. Thankfully, because I'm a homer, and I'd like to have metrics make the decision for me. If the model
breaking news.
The model said to take San Francisco, I would bet San Francisco just as fast. So, in fact, I'd rather have my money on San Francisco so that one way or another I'm a winner. But
yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, but I do worry that the San Francisco, you get Detroit behind. Goff makes a mistake like one of those pick sixes or something. If something just doesn't go the Lions' way and they have to start coming from behind and the game gets away from them early, it could get ugly. I don't see a way in hell that Detroit's going to be fortunate enough for the game to map out like it did last week with Green Bay in San Francisco. You just hate to catch these teams off of a game where they looked horrible and they had a huge scare in them. And San Francisco is going to be too well prepared. So I think Detroit has the puncher's chance to win. I think they belong, but I think that they don't. I just think they're such a young team. They're playing all these Hall of Famers with all this experience. Purdy is going to be the one to piss that game away for him. Purdy's got to throw picks. He's got to fumble. Something's got to go. Detroit has to win the turnover battle, and Purdy's going to be the one that's going to give up the game. And if he plays perfect ball, there's no way Detroit's going to win.
But I think that's part of the game plan from Shanahan, to play it smart with Purdy and to keep the gambling aspect out of that, making stupid decisions and all that kind of stuff. They'll try to play it safe in as many ways as they can. But they have so many weapons, okay? But let's not forget, last week they were outplayed for 58 minutes by the Packers on the road, and I'll not say they should have lost, but they easily could have lost, right? I mean, the Packers kicker, and I've been telling you all year, that guy is awful, and he did it again. I don't want that guy kicking extra points for me.
But the San Francisco kickers the guy from Michigan has missed 2 field goals in a row.
I understand, but in the meantime, the Packers were in a spot where the worst they could have done was to go to overtime, and they blew it. Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Again, San Francisco will make adjustments, but I do worry that it's kind of a contrast. I worry that Detroit's going to get too loose with their play calling, and I worry that San Francisco is going to get too tight with their play calling at the end, protecting the lead. Oh, can we make it 5 more minutes, 4 more minutes? And then they get really conservative. So, at 7.5, I would say, Detroit would be the only way to look to stay within the number. And I can see all kinds of different scenarios, but I'm going to throw, because I know we've looked at this game from every angle, and Cris heard me talk about this on Tuesday, and Jameson Williams, there's something about him that he's either going to be a big part of this game, either he makes that big catch, he gets involved in this offense. This is where he has to step up and stretch the field, right. Or does he drop the ball? Does he run the wrong route? I just have this vision in my head that Jameson Williams is going to be important in this game.
Well, we'll see. By the way, I want to answer a fact of the matters question on Debo's shoulder. He is 1,000% correct. Shanahan has only said, they've asked him a few times. He said, it hurts. That's what the problem with the shoulder is. We'll call it a hockey upper body injury. They're not going to discuss it any more than that. And that's all there is. That's literally, it's like, okay, it hurts. Why do you want to give the other team any more edge? Let's forget about it. He's either going to play or he's not, or he's going to be a decoy instead of a Debo. We'll find out.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how well they stop the run, how well the Lions stop the run, because
right.
Surprising fact, San Francisco only faced 2 teams out of their 18 games with a run defense in the top half of the league. And in those 2 games, Christian McCaffrey averaged 3.4 yards per carry. Not very good.
Right.
The Detroit Lions did not give up 70 yards rushing to any running back the entire season. They were a couple of yards short of being the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL. So if you see McCaffrey run wild, if you see the running game working for San Francisco, that's going to be really bad news for Detroit. So it's going to be crucial that they stuff McCaffrey some way, somehow. And if you remember last week, Green Bay was able to do that. But at some point, McCaffrey got loose. He had that 46-yard touchdown. He had a couple other runs, but they were able to stuff him.
Right. But the difference with McCaffrey, and you know this, Cris, he doesn't have to just run, because they could throw it to him 10 times out of the backfield and mix it up, and that's going to make it that much more. That's what makes him so great.
Exactly.
He doesn't have to run it one time.
And here's what do you think about this one, Ron? I think I watched this Detroit defense, and it just seems like they get burnt on these passes out on the flat. And I think I like that McCaffrey passing yardage over, because I see him breaking a couple of nice runs on some short passes, not from the run game, but from the passing game. I think, what's the over-under on his receptions, Ron? Do you know?
I believe it's probably 4.5.
He probably exceeds that, wouldn't you think?
Typical number for him, and he generally would exceed that. So I'm going to check and tell you whether there's juice on the 4.5.
And while you're checking it, I want to apologize to everybody out there that I don't have a Mike Evans type play this week, but I hope everyone cashed in.
That was a nice call last week.
He was the key to their offense. I call him. He's the Hall of Fame version of Mike Williams. He's tall, he's long arms. You just throw it up to him, and it's going to be. They had to go to him last week. Anyway, that's over with. I hope
4.5 minus 135.
Yeah. So I kind of like that. I don't know whether you like that, Ron, but
I don't want to lay 135.
Well, what are you going to lay then?
125. I also see a 125. I don't like overs. I understand it's win or go home, but my track record has always been winning on. I will bet overs were 1 out of every 3 plays, and next year it's going to be 1 out of every 4.
Well, we want some plays from you, Ron.
Well, I gave out the Noah Gray over for the overcrowd a few days ago in the Kansas City game. So that was over 9.5. You could also get what was it, about plus 135 on over 1.5 catches, but 9.5 yards.
I saw him tweet that, and I went to like 5 different shops, and the yardage didn't match, or they had all these different offshoots of it, or they didn't have them at all, and it was just like,
no, they were all there. They were there about 2 hours later because I just happened to tweet that out when only about 2 of the shops were there, but every single shop had 9.5. Today it's
Really?
10.5.
Well, answer that question, Ron.
Why the change next year? Just because what everybody should be doing, they should be tracking their own performance. And my performance historically is over 60% betting prop unders, and usually about 55% with prop overs. This year, I'd say 49.5%. So why do I want to continue betting something? Occasionally you get out of whack numbers where the overs, some of my bigger plays are overs, but I can't keep betting overs because you don't win betting overs. I mean, everybody bets overs. Everybody likes, favorites and overs.
Exactly.
It's priced in just with season win totals, with player props, everything. You will win when you start handicapping player unders.
And Ron and I have a history going back before the dinosaurs roamed the earth on betting unders.
Don't say that. Don't say it out loud.
Why?
I want to keep one thing to myself.
No, what I'm saying is unders. But in this respect, I want to take credit for being 100% this year on the overs. Mike Evans. Well, now you can move on, boys.
You're perfect.
You get extra
one
credit.
for one.
We'll give you a pat on the back, okay?
That's all I get. Last thing on Debo, guys. The numbers on Debo this year, when he played a full game, are you aware of the numbers? They were 12-1 this year, winning by an average of 19 points a game. Okay. And when he missed or wasn't able to finish a game, they were 1-4 straight up and 0-5 against the spread. Just some numbers to throw out there.
But that's deceptive, and do you know why?
Every number is deceptive if you want to play with them. I'm just saying.
They faced a tougher part of their schedule during that time.
Of course. I mean, there's factors with everything. I'm just throwing it out there. That's all.
The problem is they had Warner out for a handful of those games at the same time.
Of course.
So
there's several factors with everything. But I'm just giving you the numbers. Do with them whatever you want.
We love the numbers.
Of course. That's why.
The other monster number was from the other game, and that's Baltimore had, I believe, 11 teams. They beat 11 winning teams by 14 points or more this year.
That was the stat I gave last week.
I wasn't listening then.
Again?
Okay.
No, but then they continue to be elite that way. I mean, that stuff doesn't happen by accident. You can never, ever use the word fluke when the team is that consistent and that dominating against quality teams.
But Ron, wouldn't you have a little concern with the if this game's tight at the beginning of the mid to late third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter? Aren't you starting to think some in-game Kansas City might be in order? Do you trust Baltimore to pull out the close one?
I would have to see what their run to pass balance is. What they're doing in terms of time of possession. There'd be a lot of factors that would go into whether or not I would pull the trigger at that point.
Could you make some more noise, honey? I don't think the whole world can hear you.
Well, I can't hear it. So
I couldn't hear it either. You were safe, but anyway, I don't have any closing thoughts. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on the weekend?
Yeah, Baltimore is the play. Baltimore is the look ahead. Everything about Baltimore, because I think when the games are done, we're going to say, wow, Baltimore looked great. And San Francisco may have, won however they won, but I think it's going to be the impressive factor. And if Lamar does what he continues to do, it's going to affect the lines big time next week.
I got to say, as a Lions fan, if they were to advance, I don't want to see Baltimore again. I just hope they face Kansas City. I should have commented though, is I've been gobbling up Detroit plus 3.5 against Kansas City that's available.
Really?
If the matchup doesn't happen, you get a refund. But I think that line is nuts. There's no way in hell that line should be 3.5. So
what do you have? What would you have it at, Ron, off the top of your head?
I'm not going to do top of my head. I'm going to look up my
How
numbers.
about the bottom of your head? Maybe you could.
But I know that Detroit would obviously get a bump by upsetting.
Of course,
that particular game. So
yeah, but so would Kansas City.
Oh no, yeah, that game on neutral ground would probably come out 1.
Well, you can bet it at 3.5 right now, and
wow.
I think anybody that doesn't run as fast as they can to bet it needs their head examined. There's no way in hell that line should be 3.5. They played each other week 1, and that line was 3, and that was in Kansas City. Detroit played an entire season, matured. They would be coming off of a huge victory against San Francisco, and there's just no way you could give that team more than a field goal, and I don't think it should be 3.
Well, there's value, no doubt about it, but all I know is for you kiddies out there who have no idea who I'm talking about, and I mentioned him at the beginning of this cast, if Bobby Lane gets a chance to play a couple of plays in this game, I'd love to see him just for Lions fans who are still breathing from 1957. That's all I can say. Go Lions, baby.
I think we've run our course. Anything else, Ron?
No, good luck to everybody. Play responsibly and enjoy the games.
Yep, let's do it. Let's have some
fun.
All right,
thanks for joining. Good luck, everybody. See you next week.
Sounds good.